Many people think that living a soft life means avoiding discomfort. But the truth is that your soft life starts when you lean into the things that scare you, because that's how you grow and stretch, and that's how you create a life with more freedom and more ease. And today, I'm going to show you how embracing discomfort is a key to living a soft life. Hey there, I'm Kathleen, and if you're new to my channel, here we talk about lifestyle, entrepreneurship, and faith. And this video is the fourth in a series that I'm calling the 8 Keys to a Soft Life. And we're talking about how being uncomfortable is a part of becoming your best self. So let's talk about how to embrace discomfort. Now, listen, nobody wants to be inconvenienced or uncomfortable, including me, but shifting from a survival mode mindset to living a softer life or from struggle to a soft life, it can be uncomfortable because we might not be used to it. We might not be used to living a life with more ease and less chaos. Now, if you watched any of my other videos, then you've heard me talk about our brains and how they like comfort. So it's natural to want to stay in your comfort zone. It's natural to want to be comfortable because that's what our brains think keep us safe. But comfort can easily turn into complacency and it can keep us in the status quo. And the thing is that when you live a softer life, especially as a Black woman, it challenges the status quo. Because so many of us were taught from an early age to be strong. I remember so much messaging in the early 2000s about being a strong, independent Black woman. But what if I told you that softness is actually a strength? It's a power. Let me explain what I mean when I say that softness is strength. For a long time, I think strength was really defined as endurance. How much can you endure? How much can you push through? How much can you suppress your feelings? How much or how long can you keep going no matter the cost? And for a lot of us, especially Black women, that version of strength was necessary because it helped us survive. But that type of strength, that survival strength, it really comes at a cost. Burnout, chronic stress, emotional numbness, disconnection from yourself. And when strength is only about endurance and how much you can endure, you end up trading your well being just to keep functioning, just to live, just to keep living, to survive. You give up your overall well being. Now, softness is a different kind of strength. Softness doesn't mean that you don't go through difficult times because life will life. That's what life does. But softness is really about how you move through that difficulty. Being soft, living a soft life requires self-awareness. You have to be able to notice what you're feeling instead of ignoring it. And if you're like me, you had to learn how to stop intellectualizing your feelings and actually feel your feelings. It requires emotional regulation, choosing how you respond instead of reacting. And it also requires discernment. Softness requires boundaries. And all of that is power because anyone can shut down. Anyone can go numb. Anyone can keep pushing and pushing until they break. It takes strength to stay present with yourself, especially when things are hard, when you're going through a transition, when you're starting something new, when you're feeling uncomfortable. Softness keeps you connected to yourself. It keeps you connected to your needs. It keeps you connected to your capacity. It keeps you connected to your intuition. And when you're connected to yourself, you make better decisions. Now, softness builds self trust. And I think self trust is one of the most powerful resources that you can have because you don't have to constantly seek validation from other people. You move with clarity instead of fear. You trust yourself to be able to figure it out because you might make decisions that don't go the way that you thought they would, but you when you trust yourself, you know that you can figure it out. And this matters because growth requires change. And change requires that you're listening to yourself and your needs. Without softness, growth becomes like a force and you rush through the process. You don't trust the process. You put pressure on yourself. You might even abandon yourself in the name of trying to make progress. And you might grow, but then you'll also be exhausted. You might be disconnected. You might even feel resentful along the way. And I'll be honest, I definitely, when I wasn't growing or leaning into my softness while growing, that's absolutely how I felt. Exhausted, disconnected, and a little resentful. Now, with softness, growth becomes intentional. You respect your own limits and your capacity. You move at a sustainable pace, not the pace that everybody else tells you to move at. And you stay connected to who you are at your core while you evolve. And that's real power. The ability to grow without losing yourself, without abandoning yourself. And that's why softness is strength. It allows you to expand while staying grounded. And it turns growth into something that's sustainable instead of something that breaks you down. And this is also where discomfort comes in. In order to grow, we have to push ourselves out of our comfort zone. And yes, that feels scary. Because why would I, choose to leave my comfort for the unknown when the unknown feels scary and dangerous? But the key is that you don't have to be fearless. You just have to have courage. And you build courage by doing the things that stretch you, even when you're scared, especially when you're scared. And I know because I've been there. After getting fired from my corporate job, which if you ask me, I was pushed out, I decided not to go back to traditional corporate environments. And so now I was a beginner again, and it was very uncomfortable because I had spent almost 15 years working across different industries and gaining a lot of different skills. But now I was starting over in content, in media, and in consulting. And those were industries that I haven't really worked in since college. So this has actually been kind of full circle for me. And, I have a lot of transferable skills, but I didn't know where to start. And I remember once I got the email that my LLC paperwork was approved, I kind of just stared at the screen because I was so overwhelmed by what to do next. Because being a beginner is not easy. There's a lot of feelings that you have to feel and go through, like pride and fear and uncertainty. So, what changed for me was when I started leaning into that discomfort, the discomfort of being a beginner and feeling overwhelmed and not knowing where to start. I leaned into that instead of avoiding it. And so I started to realize that a lot of content online isn't actually speaking to beginners. It's not really relevant for where a beginner might be in their journey. And, I think some people just don't talk about their beginner years because maybe they didn't have success in the way that society would define success. And, a couple people that I've talked to, they say that if they talk about or when they've talked about their beginner years, like they don't really get a lot of engagement or people don't seem interested in that. So they figure like, why talk about it? But it was really important for me to connect with other people who were starting over. And so that's what I did. Like I was more intentional about finding content from people who were more honest about their beginner years, who really did seem to speak to people who were, in the early stages of their business or just early stages of starting something new instead of being more experienced or advanced in that area. And I also connected with communities for women who were, beginners starting over. And that's what really gave me the courage to take more steps towards my goals. And with every step that I took, it showed me that I was growing. When you're feeling uncomfortable, it could be a signal or an indication that you're stretching yourself. It's the same as when you stretch your body. Sometimes when you stretch, it can feel a little uncomfortable, but not painful. And when you feel that discomfort, you breathe through it. And then you do it again and you're able to stretch out a little further, right? So it's the same thing. When you stretch yourself and you do that repeatedly and you lean into that discomfort and breathe through it, that's how you build the courage and the confidence to create the life that you actually want, the softer life. So here's one thing that you can do today to start embracing discomfort. Think about one area in your life where you're staying comfortable, you're staying in your comfort zone. So pick that area and decide that you're going to take one small step forward and lean into that discomfort. So for example, like let's say you want a promotion at your work, but you know that you need more visibility. So decide that you're going to speak up at the next meeting. You're going to contribute something valuable and you're going to speak up. Or let's say you want to get into content creation and you have, a few videos in your drafts that you feel scared to post. You're worried about how people might judge you or whatever else. Well, pick one video and publish it. And it might feel scary at first, but fear is a feeling and it passes. So go ahead and take that small step and then do it again. And you'll start building that courage and that confidence to create the life that you really want. And if the life that you want includes working for yourself, becoming an entrepreneur, I wrote a free post on Substack that talks more about taking the leap from employee life to entrepreneurship or self-directed work, even when you're scared. So I'll link that in the description for more guidance if you're interested. If you're new to my channel, be sure to subscribe so that you can follow this series. And comment below to tell me what area are you going to lean into discomfort so that you can step into your soft life. If you like this type of content, make sure that you like this video. And before I go, I also have a free guide that helps you see where you are in your transition journey. Because remember, stepping into your soft life is a transition. And this guide walks you through 5 key questions to ask before making a shift. Think of it as a tool to, help you lean into discomfort, but with intention. And it's free when you subscribe to my newsletter. So I will add a link to subscribe below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.